I'd like to welcome you to a special session of the Golden Gate Bird Alliance Speaker Series. I'm Eric Schrader, and with me tonight is Don Lemoyne, and we are the two coordinators of the program. And Don will tell you a little bit about the speaker when we get to that point. But I'd like to welcome you, as I said, and encourage anybody who might be watching tonight, if you're not a member, to consider joining the Bird Alliance. We do wonderful work in education and conservation, preserving habitat. And it's one of the great investments I think you can make. So please do consider joining us. And one of the things that we do in this organization is run a large travel program. And there's the slide. Thank you. We're just about finished with 2024, and we've got 2025 on our books. If you go to our website, and you can see what the kinds of trips we're doing. We do both trips in the United States and international trips. And we're going to be running a Southern California trip again this year. I should warn people who know about this trip from the past that previously we ran this with Eddie Bartley and Noreen Whedon, much beloved trip leaders for us. And they've retired from this business. So this is going to be Ivan Phillipson leading this, who fortunately for us has already developed his own following with the Bird Alliance. The other trip we're running in January is down from that there. It's the, whoops, see these trips changing size. There we go. Is this owl trip that we're running to Minnesota. And we've got a few spots left on that. So if you're a cold weather person, you'd probably really enjoy that trip. I think there's a chance to see 8 or 9 different species of owls. Unfortunately, the Columbia trip to Araucana Lodge is full for this January, but we're going to repeat that trip. We repeat it every year now. And we actually are taking spots for January of 2026, if you're interested in that. We do have a couple of spots left on the second Columbia trip to the Central Andes. And usually what we do is we offer an extension to the Araucana Lodge trip. And if it doesn't fill up, then we open it up to anybody who wants to go. So I think we've got a couple of spots left on that one. We're offering a new program to Central Panama this year. And we're going to offer 2 programs in South America. We're going to do Brazil and Argentina again, which is also a great trip for seeing mammals as well as birds. Just terrific for that. It's the best place in the world to see jaguars if you're interested in big cats. And then last trip next year, we'll offer this Uruguay trip again. So if you like the presentation tonight, we're taking reservations for that one. Currently, Don and I are also working on 2026, and some of those trips are already up on the website. Some of you will know that we've been running trips to Bhutan. We didn't schedule one for 2026. I'm sorry, for 2025, but we do have one on the books for 2026, and that's already half full. So if you're interested in Bhutan, you want to think about that, getting your name on that list pretty soon. We're going back to India again, and like the Brazil and Argentina trip, if you're interested in mammals as well as birds, it's a spectacular trip because it's a chance to see lions and tigers and bears and birds. And India has the only national park in the world that has the Asiatic lion. It's extinct everywhere else. So that's a wonderful trip. I did that trip a couple of years ago and really enjoyed the diversity of stuff on that. So that's where we are in our planning. I'd like to also add that if there's a trip that you're interested in that we're not offering, but you'd like to go and you might know a friend or two who want to go, please just drop us an email because we're happy to consider all trips. And we've got a lot of different vendors we work with. And so we could probably get that on the books for you. So if there is something you're interested in, or for instance, we're considering a trip to Spain in 2026, modeled on the one we did to Portugal the last couple of years that people enjoyed a lot. So if you're interested in that, you might drop us an email. Okay, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Dawn. And Dawn's going to introduce Viviana.
Good evening, everybody. I'm very pleased to introduce Viviana Wolinsky. She's a passionate member of Golden Gate Bird Alliance and a generous volunteer. She is the assistant instructor for her partner Steve Hunter's 2 GGBA adult ed classes, On the Wing Now and Sparrows. She is the co-compiler for the Oakland Christmas Bird Count. Woo! She co-leads field trips for GGBA's field trip program. And last year, Viviana and Steve donated to Birdathon, an all-inclusive birding adventure in the Colorado Rockies. They designed, planned, booked, and led the trip themselves. The photos in tonight's presentation were taken by Viviana's partner, Steve Hunter. Steve is an amateur, but as you may shortly see, a talented and skilled photographer. I know you're going to enjoy the presentation. Viviana.
And just click on there. Oops. Just a sec. Not the most up to date on PowerPoint at the moment, so but we will get it going. One sec. Let me actually get back to the beginning. So here we go. So we called the trip when we first ran it 2 years ago. Well, it's 1 year ago, but it'll be 2 years between trips. Total Uruguay, because we get to see almost, much of the country and a lot of different areas. And so it's a Golden Gate Birding Alliance trip. And it's the guide is Rafa Tosi. And the birding guide company is Birding With Me, which is a woman-owned local company in Uruguay. And they do Birding With Me is just organizationally just really wonderful. And Rafa is just the best. So want to note that not only Steve's bird pictures, but also have pictures by some of the other members of Golden Gate who went on this trip in November of 23. Ann Ardillo, Angie Geiger, and Karen Miller very kindly shared some photos with me, and I think I also stole some from Rafa from the WhatsApp that we had set up as a group. And I must say, it's like such a cohesive group that went there that we still sometimes are communicating via that WhatsApp, and it was really a bonding experience with some wonderful fellow members of Golden Gate Bird Alliance, and I think all the rest of the participants really treasure the experience. Wanted to give a couple little factoids about the country that are bird related, or you may not know about it. So the country's name is almost everybody says it's translated from the indigenous Guarani as River of the Painted Birds, which is obviously very appropriate for us. And that was that term was coined by a famous national Uruguayan poet. And although it has been more recently disputed that it's that actually maybe river of the river snails in Guarani, but in any event, Wikipedia says that the River of the Painted Birds may not be accurate, but it certainly is culturally taken to heart by Uruguayans. So it's a small country geographically, which is to our advantage as travelers, because we get to see so much of it. It's actually a little bit smaller than Washington State, and it's even less populated. So the population of 3.4 million of those, almost 2 million are in the Montevideo metro area, which means that the rest of the country, the next biggest city is just under 100K in population, and so as we travel, it's mostly, rural, lots of, area of this is the area along with Argentina of the gauchos. And you do see people riding horses, doing ranching work. And it means that, you know, you're not going through big cities to get to all these birding spots. And so it's just a beautiful landscape. That national bird is the southern lapwing. And it's also the nickname for the much beloved national rugby team of Uruguay. And they're called the Los Teros because that's the name of the bird, and because Uruguayans think that when it vocalizes, it says tero 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 tero. So, and you need to go down there and figure out for yourself whether you agree with that description of the vocalization. You know, so sometimes, you know, people ask, well, why would you want to bird Uruguay? I mean, Colombia has just, people know that it has incredible diversity. It's a little bit closer. And, you know, and there's the jungles in Brazil, etc. But, you know, one of the things about this is it's like a perfect trip, I think, especially for people who want an introduction to South American birding. It's like, it's much easier birding than in some of those other places. The areas are really open. It's, you know, lots of grasslands and wetlands and lakes and the beaches on the Atlantic coast, and you're on the forest edges. So we can get like tremendously good looks at the birds and great photography opportunities, because you're not craning your neck looking for a teeny little bird that's stuck in all the vegetation of the jungle, or you're trying to see from the floor up into the very top of the canopy and see if you can get a small look at a partial look perhaps of a bird. These ones are, since it is more kind of open landscape and open vegetation, you get to see the birds really well. And, you know, as I mentioned, with those different kinds of open spaces, that's a lot of diversity of ecosystems, and so a lot of diversity of birds, including up in the north, the tropical, some of the more tropical birds that we think of when we think of South America, but just everything from great big huge rheas, which are ostrich-like, down to many, many ovenbirds, which are I think there's 70 odd in genus in that, and, you know, hundreds of different types of ovenbirds that we don't get to see up here. You know, along with that kind of being that easy birding because of the landscape, it's also just really comfortable climate-wise too, because their climate's pretty similar to ours. So during the time period of this trip, which matches when we went to, the average Montevideo temperature is just highs in the low 70s and lows in the mid to high 50s. So maybe a little bit cool in the morning, or maybe cool if it gets a little rainy, but it's really comfortable the rest of the day. And up in the north, it's a little bit warmer, but not much. So you're not going to be like drenched in sweat as in with some other South American birding. And you're not going to be attacked by clouds of mosquitoes. It's just really easy, really comfortable, really pleasurable. So for those who like the finer things without having to expend too much energy on it, this is a terrific place to explore. Uruguay also is just a you know, it's a really stable country. It ranks up at the very top within Latin America for you know, low perception of corruption, high levels of equality, high income. There's good, and as a result, there's good infrastructure. So so again, it's easy traveling with lots of rewards. So, you know, if I've piqued your curiosity about why to go to Uruguay, why on this particular trip, why the one that's sponsored by Golden Gate Birding Alliance and hosted by our partners Birding with Me. So I can definitely guarantee that Rafa Tosi is a fabulous guide. He's a native of Uruguay, but he spent some time in Winnipeg. So and he's a when he's not leading birding groups, he's a teacher. So he of high school, and so he's a great teacher. His English is impeccable. It's a very colloquial level of English. But he's not parachuting in either. He's this is his country, his birds, his area, and I think you know, whenever we have the opportunity to pair up with somebody who's local, it's a huge plus. And beyond that, he's just a really fun, enthusiastic person, and I think it was you know, we can attribute to his leadership that, you know, why this group came together so incredibly well. It's also a small group. It's set up to be, you know, 6 to 8 people. And so, you know, that makes it more efficient. And, but even with that smaller group, the pricing's super attractive for a 2-week trip. You know, I will mention that I just happened to look at another trip that has some of the, you know, some of the same lodging and some of the same places, and you know, you should grab this one because the prices are, you know, less than 60% of that other trip, and you know, it's a real bargain for what we're getting. The food's great because the Birding With Me has chosen an excellent group of hotels and eco lodges. Really fun places to stay at because the eco lodges are family run, and they're also some of them are actually working farms. So you get much better insight into what life is like there, and the owners and managers are really personable and they're fun to work with. So I mentioned that that there's you know, basically you get to see you know, huge swaths of the country, and you have that opportunity because it is so small. And so so here's a Google My Maps kind of showing where the different lodging is. And so going from Montevideo, which is down at the bottom there, the capital city, and going in a clockwise fashion up along the border with Argentina on the left of the map there up to the top. And so then at that point in the next two, you're very close to Brazil. And in fact, we the one up at the top, we were able to just go over the border in the town there. No customs between them, and spend a little bit of time shopping and a little bit of birding in Brazil. So they're great. You know, it's a great way to get, you know, again, both the, you know, the forests, the wetlands, lots and lots of, as you can see there, there's even at this high level, you can see the waterways there. And then of course, then also the Atlantic coast. So Montevideo itself is, you know, you might want to check it out either before or after the trip. You know, it's always good to get on an international trip, get there a day before, and there's the suggested hotel before the trip starts is right on the shore, and you can, I think we all did some birding right there to before the trip even started, and it was great fun. It's both a modern city, but it has you know, traditional Spanish background, and it's a great place to look at. But why don't you join me now, and let's go traveling. I wanted to show you how we were getting around. It was a large van. It gave space for everybody. We all had windows. But it was small enough that when we were going to some of the eco lodges on not huge roads, we could still get by. I hope you're as lucky as we were. The owner of the transportation company actually decided to go on this trip, and maybe you'll get that pleasure too. He was a great traveling companion. So our first stop was at a eco lodge called Estancia La Paz. And so this was a cattle ranch that has been turned primarily now to ecotourism, and lovely lodging. Meals were fantabulous. And it's still set up as as kind of a fancy, as it was, a fancy ranching area, and with that cattle tradition. And we had a little bit of rain there, so it was nice to have a warm fire. But I must admit, although we had some rain, it never really impacted the birding. We never missed any. When you're traveling, there'll be some familiar friends like this burrowing owl that it's amazing to think of that its range is all the way, down to basically to the tip of South America. But as I mentioned, that first stop is near the Uruguay River, the Argentine border, and found out along the way, some interesting tidbits of history too, that in that area there was a Ukrainian immigration. Jewish Ukrainians came there as and found refuge long before the current problems. We saw the effect of the flooding. So one of the parks that we were going into was pretty wet. As you can see, that person there, that road normally just continues, but not at the time that we were there. And I have to say that we all really appreciated the fact that that Rafa and Florencia, the owner of Birding with Me, were able to figure out great places to bird, even when we were cut off from some of the places that we were originally scheduled to go. And that flooding is just was a super unusual occurrence, and to have that degree of flooding, and but they were able to handle it really well. And we found Rafa knows all the eBird reviewers, and he was able to communicate with them and figure out some other places for us to go. And we didn't skip a beat. There's some really cool flycatchers. This is a tyrant that's a white-naped Synopsaurus, and we went down the road, and then we got to the next eco lodge, again a working ranch, Establecimiento Bichadero. And I was mentioning before that there's a lot of areas where instead of looking into the crowded jungle searching for the birds, it's really wide open, and could set up the scopes and look at those birds really well. Including again, a really cool tyrant. And as I mentioned, but there's a mix though. So there are also more tropical birds too. So parakeets and monk parakeets and other ones. There are some birds that I had never even heard of, and I have to admit this is like one of the names of a species name that I found really intriguing. And so these are straight-billed reed haunters, and as I mentioned, there are a lot of wetlands in Uruguay. And so this is one, a bird that's resident by the water, and it was very cool to catch a sight of these ones. So the next stop was at the Establecimiento El Proyecto, another working farm and eco lodge. And so there's lots of seed eaters and other birds that are kind of more in the palette that we're used to in the browns and blacks and whites, but there's also the very colorful saffron finches and other birds that are a little bit more colorful. Just stupendous landscapes as wherever we were going, including here at the quebrada, means like kind of the ravine of the cuervos are crows, but in this case, it actually refers to vultures. But we were just in awe of the landscapes as we were passing through them, and the vistas, the clouds, the sunsets, etc. If you look back on this one, right here to the left of the person on the left, if you looked in that bush, probably hiding right now as we see it, was a ferruginous pygmy owl. So we saw quite a number of different owls, tropical screech owl, you saw the burrowing owl, others from here that we have here too, great horned owls, but a combination of both, ones that are found only in South America and ones that have a really broad range. So, one bird that is a South American specialty is the southern screamer. Again, fabulous looks because, we have unobstructed views of the wetlands, etc. We then continued on to a hotel that's called it's named after the fort that's there, Fortín de San Miguel. And, we all, when we drove up, we thought, well, maybe this is the fort, but it's actually across the street and just has a very complementary architecture. And you really did get a sense of being in a fortress-like area there, and being the lords. We were the lords and ladies of the manor there, with really great treatment by the staff and nice place to stay. So we got a bit of both of the history there, going into the fort, but we were, of course, we're birders, so we were going to be birding while we were there, and we have a couple of checklists with some great birds while we were birding the fort. But we we got a little bit of a culture fix too, a little history fix. So right here at the fort, got a great view of a glaucous blue grosbeak. And I'm kind of surprised that it took me so long to get here, but here's the Rufus ornero. It's one of the really very prevalent birds in Uruguay and in other parts of South America, and they build a nest that this one is sitting on. That's kind of like a little oven, and that's the name for the entire ovenbird family then comes from the ornero of making these kind of oven-like nests. So this one's, I think, in the process of construction because November is a fabulous time to be down there. It's the austral spring. So there's both nest building, and we saw lots of chicks, lots of feeding of the young. You know, it's really nice to be able to have 2 springs in a year. So when you go down there, you get both you leave the shorter days of California, and you go down, and it's about 14 hours of daylight during that time of year, and it's springtime again, and it's great to be down there. We also got the opportunity to then turn the corner and start traveling along the Atlantic coast, and so we got a chance to see a lot of different shorebirds, and some stunning vistas. And of course, we birds weren't the only animals that we were interested in seeing. Here's a capybara with a shiny cowbird getting a ride across. So, but Rafa's he's a biologist. He has a master's in zoology, and he's great, not just the mammals that everybody might know from South America, like the capybara, but was really great at being able to find and identify a wide variety of insects and other mammals, and we got just a full naturalist take on it. One of the last places that we went to ended up being a resort, golf and art resort, but its attraction for birders is it's right on the laguna, and so there's and its grounds are quite extensive, so there was lots of birding both in the grassy areas around, and then looking at the birds at the shoreline there. And one of the ones that we were just really psyched to be able to see really well, because it's a tough one sometimes. Most of the time is a many-colored rush tyrant. So again, bird that's living in the reeds there, and was popping up for us to admire in all its splendor. And then, we enjoyed birding from, till we just couldn't see anymore. And so as we get later in the evening there, we're getting in later in the evening here. And I also just wanted to open it up for any questions that people might have.